focus on the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, also known as DACA for short, which also created the DREAMS Act bill. DACA was put in place by President Obama in 2012 for the purpose of protecting the children of undocumented citizens who came to America for better opportunities. There are about 800,000 Dreamers, as DACA recipients are called, who have benefited from the protection of being deported back to their country of origin. When the Department of Justice, under the leadership of Attorney General Jeff Sessions, decided to rescind this much-needed program, they were placed under serious threat. This is a very important issue for me because throughout my 28-year career as a high school teacher, I have and currently teach students who are at risk of being taken away from a life to which they have grown accustomed. There's the possibility that they can be taken away at any time. The purpose of today's show is not only to educate, but to provide important information to those who need assistance and guidance as to how to get protection from being forced to leave this country. I'm honored to have as my guest Ms. Rachel Ephron Sharma of Ephron Sharma Immigration and Mr. Tim Campbell, who serves as the Legal Services Director of Immigrant Hope. The call-in number to ask questions is 404-474-0080. Welcome and thank you for being my guest today. Would you please tell me a little bit more about yourselves? Rachel, you can go first.
Sure. My name is Rachel Ephron, and I have my own law practice. I'm in private practice for the past 10 years, and I've been practicing immigration law for the past 14 years. And I do all types of immigration law: family, business immigration, asylum law, immigration court work. And this is a really near and dear issue for me. So I hope it works out for the best.
My name is Tim Campbell, and I work with Immigrant Hope Atlanta. We're a nonprofit, and I'm an accredited representative with the Department of Justice, and I can act like a lawyer. I can represent people, and I do so with USCIS, United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, and I'm still working on getting my ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement accreditation. But I lived in Mexico 12 years, and I've been working in the Latino community around Beaufort Highway for the past 20 years.
Okay, that's something we have in common. I taught at Cross Keys High School for about 8 years, so I'm definitely familiar with the immigrant population there. What made you decide, both of you, this question is for both of you, and whoever answers first is okay, but what made you decide to focus on immigration defense? You're an immigration lawyer. What made you decide to do that? And then what made you so passionate to help immigrants in your choice of work?
I had traveled a lot in my life and been to some other countries, including less wealthy countries, and learned a few languages when I was coming up in school, and I did some volunteering for some immigration nonprofits when I was in law school, and I just knew that that's what I wanted to do, so that's what I've always done. It seemed simple to me. You know, I wanted to help immigrants. I can't imagine working on the other side.
Right. Okay.
And like I said, I've worked in Mexico for 12 years. And when I came back here, I worked for nonprofits. And I had a soccer team as one of the parts of my nonprofit. And I had 15 guys on the soccer team, and 9 of them were undocumented. And so I had studied already, taken a course on immigration law up in Chicago with World Relief. And I was able to learn something about that. And also, as soon as June 15th came around, well, it was before then, I knew about something about it, but June 15th, when President Obama made the announcement, I went to this gentleman, law firm up in Norcross, and he hired me on the spot because I knew about this action that was coming, and so we started the process. I think it was August 15th, 2012 is when it started, and so I've done a lot of applications since then, both there and now with Immigrant Hope Atlanta.
Okay, all right. Well, this leads me to my next question. How do you feel when Jeff Sessions made the announcement, and were you expecting that to happen under this administration?
Originally, we were expecting it to happen under this administration. I mean, Trump ran on the campaign promise that he was going to immediately eliminate all, what did he call them, amnesties that were done by executive action. I don't consider this an amnesty, but that's what he had said. And so we were surprised when he didn't do it, and now he has. Unfortunately, there's just been a lot of back and forth. I mean, I'm glad that those people were allowed to keep their status for an additional 9 months, but in the general scheme of things, it's just not enough.
Right, okay.
Yeah, a lot of misinformation has been put out by this administration on what who immigrants are, and also immigration law. A lot of the things, like she mentioned, was amnesty. It's not amnesty at all because it only gives a work permit. It gives you no lawful status to be here in the United States, only lawful presence.
Okay.
Therefore, legally, there's nothing you can do to obtain residency or citizenship status, so it's not amnesty.
Okay.
And a lot more things have been misspoke
Right.
on that side too.
And speaking of things that were misspoke, one of the comments that Attorney General Jeff Sessions said was that when President Obama actually implemented this program as an executive order, that it was unconstitutional. Is there any truth to that? Rachel, would you like to elaborate?
I don't think it's any more unconstitutional than any other executive order that's done
Okay.
by any prior president. And
Okay.
I believe that Bush implemented more executive orders than Obama did. I mean, I'm not an expert on the number, but I've heard that before. And for what reason was it unconstitutional? I don't see a reason.
Okay.
Right. For the past 50 years, every president has had some kind of immigration executive action. So to say that it's unconstitutional would be to say that all of those presidents did this were unconstitutional, and that's a totally false concept.
Okay. Well, staying with the issue of untruths, there are a lot of people who claim that the DACA program allows criminals and terrorists to be allowed to stay in this country. Can you speak to how that is definitely a false accusation?
You have to qualify for the DACA program. It has strict requirements. First of all, you have to prove that you came here before the age of 16. You have to have documents from the U.S., like medical records or school records, showing that. Then you have to show you've been continuously present with no absences longer than 3 months from 2007 until today. Then you have to show that you have no substantial criminal record. That would even include if you have one DUI, you can't qualify. If you have any kind of significant crimes, you can't qualify. So it's really not for criminals. It's for people that were brought here when they were too young to decide.
Okay.
Yeah. Every 2 years, you have to renew the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, the work permit, and that means you have to go to get your fingerprints taken. I've had a few clients where they had something that was supposedly wrong, and without even due process, that means that just with a charge, the kids will lose their work permit.
Oh wow. That's
And
awful.
so to say that there are any criminals at all would be false. And also, if you go to the fingerprint office and you have any kind of gang symbol tattooed on you, you do not qualify.
Wow.
So the whole idea that a criminal or gang members have qualified for this is totally false. Every 2 years you have to go and be examined again and pay $495.
Right.
And United States Citizenship and Immigration Services charges $495 every time, and they're completely funded, not by taxpayers, but by the funds that they charge to the immigrants that they service.
Okay.
They're the only part of the government that doesn't shut down. So
Okay.
seems like, or one of the only parts.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what is the process for a person to apply for DACA protection if they haven't done so already? Understand that if there's a cutoff
They
period.
can't anymore if it's an initial
Or-
filing.
okay.
They've killed it now. So
Right.
they can only renew if they're expiring before March 5th, 2018. They've killed initial filings completely, and the renewals are to that date. Like, I have a client that expires on March 20th.
Mm-hmm.
She can't renew.
Oh, wow,
So-
that's awful. Hopefully Congress will intervene. When I was doing my research for today's show, I understand that there are some Trump supporters who are happy about the rescission of DACA, but they don't want the Dreamers to be sent back to their place of origin. What are your thoughts on that? Is that fair or
No,
not?
I mean, okay, for example, I've done about 3,000 of these, okay? I know all the kids. I've got a lot of the kids along Beaufort Highway and other parts of Georgia. I helped somebody in Utah, somebody in Nevada.
Okay.
So, you know, all over the country, and people from all over the world. I helped a kid whose mother was from Nigeria, another one from Caicos, from the Caribbean island,
Mhm.
another one from England,
Okay.
another girl from Russia.
Okay. Wow.
So, you know,
You've done a lot.
They're from all over the world. These kids have come, and the only home they know is this country. They grew up here. Some, when they were 2 months old, were brought here.
Mhm.
Some when they were 9 years old. They came through the desert with their mother from Honduras, for example.
Mhm.
But this is their home now. They graduated from high school, or they're still in high school. Some folks. A couple I know, 2 kids I know from 2000. They were in high school, and they were in a club back then that I was a part of. And the woman has her own business, her own insurance business
Okay.
now, and her husband has his own business working with different car dealers.
Mhm.
Both of them are going to lose their work, their jobs, if when this expires.
Okay.
So something must be done to get the Dream Act, and just so many good stories. 99.9% of the kids deserve to stay here, should stay here, and it's more than that. This is their country. This is all they know.
It is.
If they go back to
Right.
another country,
Right.
and some of these kids have no family
Right.
back in the other country where they came from.
Right. Now, Tim, when I called you to ask for you to serve as a guest on this show, you were telling me about experiences that you had where you were helping people cross the border. That makes me think about the time before the Civil War during the Underground Railroad. What you were doing, was it similar to that in terms of helping young people
Well,
get to better?
I'm not a coyote. Okay?
Okay.
No.
Okay.
I've been through the border about 200 times because of my work back in
Okay.
Mexico. I was a missionary in Mexico. I worked in the trash dumps of Mexico City, people that lived on the trash dumps,
Mm.
the people in the lower class outside the city of Mexico. So it's I've had a lot of different experiences. I know a lot about Mexico. I worked in the indigenous area of Mexico too. 27 indigenous languages are still spoken in Mexico. So to
How
say,
many of them do you speak?
Oh, I only speak one. I only speak Spanish.
Okay. Okay.
But I know some words, you know.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
But I know Spanish fluently. But the thing is, you know, my in-laws live down at the border,
Mhm.
so I've been through the border many times. And when they talk about a wall, you know, those are our neighbors. Those are the people that we know. And to throw up a wall would just be well, it wouldn't be neighborly. okay? And that's to say the least.
Right.
But there's so much trade that goes on in between the two countries. People work on one side, live on the other, all along the border. And you know, the whole idea that people have is wrong when it comes to the border and to our neighbors in Mexico.
Okay. It's my understanding that President Trump will only allow Congress to address DACA if he gets funding or if he's able to build the wall. Do you think if the wall is built that it will probably become like an Angel Island or Ellis Island type facility where they determine who comes in, who doesn't, or what?
Well, they
How do you think they will operate it?
Significant part of the border is walled.
Yeah.
I mean, so, I mean, you know, I don't know how many billions of dollars it was for him to do whatever his plan was, but, you know, let's say
To make Mexico pay for it. I think that was his original plan.
Yeah, well, how are we
that's
going to
not
do
gonna
that?
No.
So, even if they do, let's say they do a section of it. No, I mean, I think the wall is always going to be somewhat porous, just because of how large it is.
Right.
But at the same time, what I've heard is that the fact that people can no longer flow back and forth has caused people to remain in the United States longer because they're afraid to go home and not be able to get back in.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
that's
and-
happened.
And a $25 ladder will get you over the wall. So the whole idea that a wall is going
Wow.
to keep people out of, you know, there are people in Mexico who have family here. A husband who's been deported, maybe. A wall's not going to keep him out. He wants to get back with his family.
Right.
And so he will come back whatever he can do.
Right.
And I've seen a lot of cartoons in Spanish about what they think of the United States doing this too.
Are they funny? I can imagine
they're
they
very
are.
funny.
Okay.
Yeah, I bet. Well, I've spent time down in Dilley, Texas, at the place where they detain the moms and children. And what I can say is that these are refugees. They are fleeing from horrific gang violence and domestic violence. If they had an option to stay where they were, they would. They're no different than the Syrian refugees that we see. They're just because of politics and because of what country they come from. They're being, you know, they're just being called illegals. But you know, after going and hearing their stories, they are truly seeking refuge in this country because they have no other choice. So no amount of deterrent is going to deter somebody that's going to be killed if they stay where they are.
Right.
So, I mean, you know, it's...
If there's a will, there's a way, for the most part.
Well, if you're running for your life,
Right. You're going to
being
find a way.
told, oh, you're going to get arrested when you get there, is not a deterrent, in my opinion.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, and you can apply for asylum as soon as you get across the border, something called defensive asylum.
Okay.
And but in order for you to be a refugee to the United States, you have to be assigned as a refugee from the United Nations Refugee Task Force. And of course, nowhere in Latin America is there any refugee-appointed country right now. So you cannot be a refugee from Latin America.
Why is that?
That's just the way the system works.
Okay.
Okay, that's just the way it is.
Can anything be done to change it, possibly?
Well, in my opinion, the gang violence is being called quote-unquote criminal activity, and they're not being considered to be an organization that's terroristic. Whereas, let's see, go back a few years to what used to go on in Colombia with the FARC, and you know, they were kind of like considered paramilitary, or you know, so they were a quote-unquote persecutor for purposes of the asylum law, and yet a gang like, you know, Calle 18, the 18th Street Gang, is not being considered a persecutor. But I don't see the difference. They're both infiltrated into the government. They're both heavily armed. They're both extremely well networked. They're both doing a lot of the same things. They're both selling drugs. They're both, you know, have a lot of control over the prison system, the different levels of corruption in government. So I think it's very political who we define as a refugee these days.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right.
Yeah, and you know, the other thing about coming across the border I didn't mention before is there is a way you can come through the border. Look, I have a lot of friends who are from Latin America, so they tell me a lot of stories. So the safest way to get across the border is to pay one of our corrupt border officials.
Wow.
And that is a couple $1,000 more, but you can do it. And then you can get into this country, and it's a safer way to come.
Wow.
But I didn't say that, did I?
No, you didn't say that, and guess it's not recorded.
Well, there are
Okay.
people at all levels of government that have been paid. You know,
Yeah.
they've caught people at the driver's license place being paid to issue, you know, or the Social Security place
Right.
office. You know, yeah. So that goes on.
Okay.
Yes.
It's
It's
basically
very unfortunate.
an industry is being created.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to build a wall, that's just not gonna, it's not gonna deter anybody.
Okay. What advice do you give to those dreamers who are at risk of being deported, possibly? Is there anything they can do except wait for Congress to act at this point?
Depends on their individual case.
Okay.
And I can tell you that we have some that have other options. I have one that's got a U visa pending since 2015, but of course it's going to be another year and a half before she can even get a work permit through that, and she expires in a few months.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, the U visa was based on her child being abused by, so I'm wondering if we can't do something, you know, an abuse case for her outright, but there's some some of these cases are complicated. You know, some of the clients were able to get a DACA travel document and go out and come back in and make a legal entry, and in those cases, if they marry a citizen, they can adjust their status here. So I've got a couple like that we're filing now. I've got some might seek asylum, but because of the length of time that they've been here, that's dicey.
Okay.
They'd have to qualify for some kind of exception to the 1-year filing deadline, which requires you to file within 1 year of your entry.
Okay.
And you know, some of them just feel like they should be doing something, but there's nothing they can do, and it's incredibly can make them feel incredibly helpless.
Okay.
You know, I have someone working for me.
Okay.
You know, and there just isn't. We just got to wait and pray that Congress does something.
Okay. Speaking of Congress, if you were part of Congress, or if you're a senator or representative called on you to ask you to help them come up with some type of legislation for DACA, what would you advise them?
Well, there's been a dream bill proposed 6 times already since, I think, 2000.
Mm-hmm.
But presently there's a Dream Act proposed by the senator from South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
What was his name?
Lindsey Graham.
Yeah, Lindsey Graham. Yeah, and it's a pretty good bill. And what you need is to have a pathway to citizenship for these kids.
I agree.
And it starts with a work permit,
Mm-hmm.
maybe paying a small fine,
Mm-hmm.
and then going from there to residency, and after that, just like everybody else, you get your citizenship after 5 years,
Mhm.
or 3 years in this case. I personally think we ought to just go and give them citizenship and cut all the red tape, but that'd be too easy, for the amnesty folks, for
Mhm. Right.
for the folks that are so against these folks being here.
Okay.
And so yeah, there is a dream bill already put in, and I've found it. You can find it at the Hill, I think thehill.com.
Okay.
They have all the bills that are proposed there.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a number of them. Some of them are just the same as what DACA is now.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are a path to residency and eventually citizenship.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I just hope, they have to figure out something, because you can't. I think these kids least of all deserve to be political pawns,
And that's what they are being right now.
Right.
because they have no responsibility. If they were brought here before age 16, they just don't.
Right.
You know, they're brought here by their parents. If they came alone, they could have already applied for a green card as a special immigrant juvenile.
Mm-hmm.
So these kids were brought here by their parents, period.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some of them maybe even when they were 1, 2, 3 years old.
Wow.
You know, I have a client who's here since he was 10, or, some of my clients, I sent a client to process marriage case who been in the U.S. since he was 10 years old. And he went to Mexico to process to Ciudad Juarez to the embassy. And they gave him, when he left the interview, they gave him a paper in Spanish, and he couldn't read it.
Wow.
And he said, "Do you have that paper in English?" And they said, "Don't you speak Spanish?" And he said, "I can't read Spanish."
That's, oh my.
And he had to send it to
So-
me, and I had to read it to him.
Wow.
Wow.
So yeah, that's definitely unfair
Yeah, well,
to send them back. This is
there's-
all they know. We've invested in them, in
Right.
our educational system. They're valuable contributors to society, and I just believe that they should be protected at all costs. But go ahead, Tim,
Yeah, but
what were you
there's-
going to say?
There's no other law that I know of, civil or otherwise, that holds a child responsible for a law that their parents broke. Am I correct? There's no other law civil, and to be here unauthorized is a misdemeanor. It's not a felony. It would be the same as if you were to go buy fireworks for your children in South Carolina and bring them back across the border. That's a federal misdemeanor. It's the same level of crime.
Right.
And by the way,
Well, actually, it's a civil offense.
yeah, it's just
Immigration is civil. It's not even, I wouldn't even say it's a crime at all.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's,
okay.
Immigrants are civil detainees. It's a
Yeah.
civil system,
and we've made it into
An
some big
administrative
terrible
Right.
thing.
law
Right.
And it's
system,
not.
just like the IRS or the, yeah.
Yeah, and it's ridiculous what we do to people over that. We hold them in detention centers for 8, 12 months, for 2 years on a civil matter.
Right.
And many times those conditions are very bad too. But
They are, and I can talk about that too. But
You
oh
can.
yeah, I can, I've been to Stewart, and you have too. And
I've got a couple of, I have
Share one with us.
Well, I have a heart-wrenching pro bono case right now for a guy who's from Nigeria, and he applied for asylum and was detained by immigration for 15 months. Detained at the airport because I guess the visa he came in with wasn't quite for the purpose of why he was coming, and they discovered that, and he had had an old surgery back in the 90s and on his bladder, and they took him to the dentist and they put a chain around his waist, and they wouldn't
Oh
let him
my
go to the
God.
bathroom, and his surgery site burst, and they left him
Oh.
like that in detention for 8 months and
That is
didn't treat him.
So
And
sad.
when we took his case, we said, you have to treat him or release him, otherwise we're going to sue you. And so he was released, and he's had 2 surgeries,
Oh wow.
and we'll see. But
Right.
and I'm only sharing this because it is public information. It's
Right,
been in the
right.
in the news.
Right.
So, yeah. So,
Wow.
but
That's
it's,
that's really sad.
that's the kind of things they do. I mean, I knew a person working on the case for another lady who, I don't know, earlier this year maybe, she had a brain tumor that was, and was basically dying in a hospital room, and they wouldn't release her from detention. And wouldn't allow access to her, things like that. Were guarding her room, and here she was like having seizures, and
That's
you know,
heartless.
it's not, the medical care is minimal in these detention facilities, even the one where they detain children. There's been recent articles in the media about them, just treating everything with like Vicks or water. And, even down in Dilley, the water's full of arsenic, and they have them drinking that water. That's not safe because of fracking and whatever.
Oh my.
So that's what they're feeding these kids, and of course they get sick. So, Stewart is a whole nother thing. I mean, Stewart is horrible. That's recently been in the media as well.
Stewart.
Stewart Detention Center
Okay.
in Lumpkin, Georgia.
it's 3.5 hours south of Atlanta.
It's near Columbus.
That's where they send everyone to.
Okay.
Not only from Georgia, right? From
Yeah,
everywhere.
From everywhere, yeah.
They ship them down there and kind of forget about them, and they've got a 98% deportation rate, something like that.
Yeah, this
Wow.
is, we have by far and away the worst Immigration and Customs Enforcement Court than in anywhere else in the country,
Okay.
Yeah.
by far.
Yeah, statistically, I don't know what it is this year, but I mean, there was, I think when the statistics came out from Syracuse University, it was like, we had a 13% approval
No,
ratings or
no.
something.
Okay, for defensive asylums,
Yeah.
in New York, 84% of the cases are approved. In Nebraska, 70%, and also in San Francisco. And I think it is 58% in Texas. Here in Georgia, 2%.
Wow. Why is that? Because of the political climate in Georgia?
It's just the way the court runs.
They claim, and there's a lot of information out there on the internet, they claim that it's fair and that all the cases here are just bad, but it's not true.
That's not true.
I mean, there are so many reasons why it's so complicated, and it's this bad system that's just become entrenched. And now what's scary is that they're trying to replicate what we do here elsewhere, because a lot of people that have kind of come up the ranks in the ICE office that's prosecuting in Atlanta are getting promoted.
Yeah, and they're all Trumpites.
Into the leadership.
They're
Wow.
Trumpites.
And they're not necessarily the worst. I have to say, they're not necessarily the worst people. I mean, some of them are pretty reasonable people, but they understand the Atlanta system. I don't mean it as a personal slight to any of them, but it seems to me that we're such an efficient deportation machine here in Georgia that they're going to replicate that.
Yeah,
I think
I was in Stewart Detention Center one time going into the court with a family, and I was listening to the how do you say it in English? The peace cop,
Well, you would say ICE attorney, but I guess you would say prosecutor.
The prosecutor,
right?
the ICE prosecutor, was actually saying how much, this is before Trump was elected, how much he liked Trump and all this stuff. So the whole political machine is way to the right when it comes to the ICE court here, and that's what the problem is.
Well, and we also have the 11th Circuit, which is very conservative. So if things get appealed up 2 levels, the court that makes the case law is very conservative as well. So, but yeah, I mean, I think it's also just the culture of the court is very harsh. I had trouble getting time off from maternity leave, or, I've just seen attorneys get belittled or mistreated by the judges here, and I have not seen that in other courts around the country that I've been to, even immigration courts. So maybe it goes on, but I don't think to the degree and extent.
And there are like about 25,000 people who were protected under the DACA program?
800.
Okay, well, in Georgia. I understand that
Georgia.
California has the biggest
Sounds like it might be right.
number. Yeah.
That's right.
And
That's correct.
California is now a sanctuary state. Will you explain what a sanctuary city is, what that means?
It means that they won't turn people over to us.
Okay.
It's not what it sounds like it is.
Okay, and that's what I'm getting
Okay.
to. Okay.
There's something called a 287G,
Right.
and that means that they will turn anyone with any charge over to immigration court. I was with 2 DACA kids. I went to the Gwinnett County court. One of the kids who just applied for DACA, and also has an American-born citizen wife. He was actually put into deportation for no license. His very first no license. He has his own
Minor
contract.
infractions.
Yeah, he
Okay.
also has his own contracting company. But that happens in Gwinnett County and Cobb County and Hall County, different counties around Atlanta.
Right.
And so what that means is that anyone who is undocumented for any reason will be put into put an immigration hold on them, and they will be put into immigration court. And so they have to pay an $8,000 bond at least, or higher, up to $15,000.
If they get a bond.
And then they have to pay an immigration lawyer $4,000, $5,000, whatever it is, and that's a big chunk of money for these kids, But I went up and spoke with the ICE official up in Gwinnett County, and for one of the kids, but they still went ahead and took him. I took up his application. I explained that he was married to an American citizen, and they still put him into deportation down in Stewart.
They don't care. They've got quotas to meet at this
That's
point.
right. But then I went a second time, and the second time I went for the other DACA kid, same situation, same exact situation. I explained to the ICE official, look, I said, do you know that a traffic
Violation.
fine, traffic
Okay.
violation
Mhm.
does not go against you in immigration?
Mm.
And I don't think she knew.
Okay.
And you see, that's part of the problem. The people that work in ICE and also Customs and Border Enforcement, sometimes they're not taught really what the law is,
Mhm.
and so they don't know. But he was able to get out of deportation,
Mhm.
or out of the immigration hold, the second guy, and they called up his wife and discovered that it really was that. But I would hope that people will understand that, how the bureaucracies work
Mhm.
and how much that is a detriment to immigrants.
Mhm.
And immigrants should be the ones we were caring about, not doing this to.
Mhm. Now I do understand too that there are different sheriff's departments throughout the state of Georgia who are not actually really working with ICE in terms of arresting criminals or detaining, I shouldn't say criminals, detaining refugees or immigrants for those minor infractions that you just named. Do you know any of those different
Atlanta,
sheriff's
Fulton,
departments in
Atlanta,
Georgia?
Fulton County,
Okay.
Clarkston.
And which would be in DeKalb?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the city of Clarkston.
Okay.
But I suppose, if you're unincorporated,
Right.
DeKalb, that's a different story.
Right.
I'm not sure.
Doraville and
otherwise.
Chambly do not do that either.
Okay.
And Brookhaven,
Okay.
they're not.
The police.
They don't
That
put
makes sense.
immigration holds for anything.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
Are these law enforcement agencies punished by the federal government for not falling in line, if you will?
Well, they're trying to be.
they're
but-
being threatened, I believe.
Yeah, they're being threatened, but
with
I think that-
funding being withheld. Things
I think
like
a
that.
judge just overturned the
There's a lawsuit.
good.
Yeah.
the lawsuit against
Mhm.
the federal
That's right.
government for trying to take away the funds.
Okay.
So I don't think that is working out too well.
Okay.
It's a good thing.
That is a good thing. There are scammers out there who would
Yeah.
definitely take advantage of this situation of people being sent out of the country. What advice would you give to someone to keep them away from these type of people?
Make sure that the person you're dealing with is licensed or accredited. And try to verify the information. Unfortunately, immigrants are a vulnerable population because they're new here, or they may not speak the language as well, and so they get preyed upon by certain people in the community. And those of us, in the immigration bar, we try to identify those people and do what we can to stop it. But there isn't always a lot that we can do. What we've seen a spike in is things like people applying for asylum when they don't qualify, because the wait times for an interview are about 3 years now, so they can get a work permit
3
in the meantime.
years.
But what's going to happen at the end is that they're going to be put in deportation proceedings, and they don't know, that is not explained to them, and they're not even always told that they're applying for asylum or what that means. That they're, swearing that they're afraid to go back, and some of them are not even aware of the contents of the applications they sign. It depends how good how literate they are in English, whether
Right.
the person preparing that actually shows it to them and lets them review it as they should be required to do.
Right.
So we're going to probably be seeing more and more people that are getting scammed because desperate people will look for that magic answer even more. So many times people are in my office and, I can't tell them what they want to hear. And it's hard. It's heartbreaking, to have to tell somebody, no, you don't qualify for anything. Somebody
Right.
like one of these kids. But it's sometimes all you have is the truth.
Right.
So,
Yeah, that's the way it is. Sometimes we have, I've helped several families from Venezuela. They do qualify because they bring their asylum proof that they have been, victims of some kind of crime in their home country or whatever. But I know, some people are charged a lot of money for something that's supposed by somebody who was not telling the truth and telling everything. And that's a problem because sometimes people are put in deportation, and when I went down to Stewart the last time I told you about, that's what the case was, because some lawyer had told them to file an asylum. They supposedly took the asylum out, and then they had this other small problem with their taxes, and they got deported for that. You know, it was some ridiculous thing that, and also another problem. Even though they had a child who had a disability, they got deported. But you know, it's so hard here in the state of Georgia, knowing what to do. But you need to look. You need to have the immigrants who do get help look up. You know, do research on who you're going to. Just don't go to anybody. And that includes lawyers too, because some lawyers will tell you that you can do stuff, and they shouldn't be giving you that advice.
Right.
Am I correct?
Yeah, absolutely. But, you know, I try to tell people to aim for somebody who's a lawyer that's a member of the American Immigration Lawyers Association, or that at least has some immigration knowledge. You know, the other issue, I think, too, is lawyers kind of that are maybe out in the country and don't have a lot of immigrant clients, just a few here and there, and they think, oh, I can just fill out this application, and they don't understand the complexities of how everything fits together. You know, the immigration law rivals the tax code, so it's not just a
Really?
matter of,
Oh yes.
I mean, we've
Very
had,
complex.
Okay.
you know, there are code sections, there are regulations to explain the code sections, there are memos to explain the regulations. Some of the regulations are then found to be unjust or unconstitutional by the courts, and, you know, then there's case law, and then there's, you know, so there's so many things that have to fit together right for the case to work that, you know, it's like me, I learned too many languages, so I don't speak either of them that well, or any of them that really well, because I get mixed up, you know, so I feel at least I didn't do that with law. You know, I learned one area of law well, and I don't.
Okay. Well, that leads me, I guess, to my next question. Immigration reform. Is it needed, or is it just a political ploy? And what types of reform do you think would be necessary at this time? It could be outside of DACA.
I can answer that one all day. I mean,
Go ahead.
how much time you got?
can do it, but
Well, we already mentioned several things. Like one thing is due process. There's no
Right.
due process for immigrants.
Right.
That's one thing we could do to change that.
yeah.
Things like the employment-based immigration. I mean, you got to be kidding me. I mean, I don't even know where to start for that. Okay, H-1B worker visas. Those are for highly skilled workers, most of whom are paying out-of-country tuition to be students here in the United States. And then they finish school and they can't get a visa to work here, so they take all that PhD knowledge and expertise and they go home to their country abroad. And they make that country rich and successful. Why do we not want to give these people visas? So in the Clinton years, the number of visas was extended to 105,000. Now it's back to the original 65,000, and we haven't raised it for years. The lottery that they hold it in April for an October 1 start date, and the first day that you can apply for the visa is April 1. They've been getting, like, the last 2 years, 3 to 4 times the number of applicants that they have visas. My employers don't even want to file anymore. They say it's a waste of money because, you know, I used to say, all right, well, you know, I'll give you a credit and I'll redo it next year for you for free. I can't anymore because, I mean, 3/4 of them don't get it. So I can't afford to do that anymore. And they're like, well, we can't afford to file anymore. We're just going to figure out something else. And so we're losing all that skilled labor to other countries, and most of them are working in technology, medicine. So I don't understand that. And then the other thing would just, you know, the visa numbers. You know, based on the number of visas in the pipeline, if you are either doing family or employment-based immigration from certain countries, like let's say you are a bachelor's degree holder from India, and your employer has sponsored you for a green card, and you've been in status the entire time, never one day illegally present, you're on H-1B, it will take 70 years for your priority date to become current and you to get a green card.
Did you say 70?
70, based on the number of visas currently available and the number of applications in the pipeline. For family-based, one for Mexico, a U.S. citizen who's sponsoring their child who's over 21, 100 years. We will all be dead.
Right.
This is ridiculous.
What kind
It
of
is.
system is that?
Right.
Like, just eliminate it if you're going
Right.
to do that.
Right.
Because, I mean, what's the point?
Right.
Well, it's important to realize too that our present immigration laws and the amount of people that we allow to come with employment and these other family-based applications, this was all created back in 1965.
Mm-hmm.
1965 was a long time ago.
It was.
And we haven't really changed it since.
They won't increase the numbers or
Yeah.
change the system or anything.
And now Trump wants to reduce those numbers. No, we're going the wrong
Right.
way. It should be totally opposite that.
Right.
We can't, those workers, they create jobs
Right.
for other people.
Right.
And we don't have enough technology savvy people to fill those jobs in the U.S. If there wasn't such a dearth of qualified people, the H-1Bs wouldn't be happening because they jacked up the fees on the H-1Bs so high that, I mean, it's costing, gosh, I'm trying to remember how much it is. The fees, just the fees for the employer to sponsor somebody, there's something like $6,000 or something.
Wow.
'Cause they put all these extra fees on the visa. So, I mean, they're not going to go through all that if they can find somebody here qualified who can do the job. They can't find anybody.
Right.
So that's, we're just losing that. Two of my smaller companies who've tried for 2-3 years in a row to get H-1Bs, they've opened branch offices in India. And they've got the people working there because they couldn't bring them over. But then what happens to their HR? What happens to their, their legal assistant or their, front desk person? Or, everything's going to get sent abroad, and that's it just costs money to our economy. The taxes aren't going to be paid here because
Right.
the work isn't being done here.
Right.
All of that. So, how do we remain competitive in the global
And
economy?
it goes the other way too, with the unauthorized people who do low-wage jobs.
Nobody wants to do that.
Nobody wants to do those either. I'm sure that Trump has many people working on his golf courses and his hotels that do a great job when they're needed, but yet there's nothing they can do in order to get a work permit, in order to get legally here. Even if you've been here 25 years, there's nothing you can do.
The farm workers are a great example of that. That
Yes.
is hard work
Yes.
that nobody else wants to do. Yeah, I mean, there was that documentary in Alabama or something where, when all of this immigration enforcement went down, a lot of the farm workers fled. And in South Georgia, there was an article about the Vidalia onions routing on the vines.
I remember that.
And apparently, I saw some documentary about they tried to get prisoners to come do that work.
Yeah.
They tried to get all different people to
Yeah.
come do that work, and nobody lasted a day.
Well,
You know,
I
it's-
have a story about that too. They tried to get people to, I think people who were on parole or whatever to work, and they say they would turn over the crates and sit on them and smoke and whatever. So that didn't work either. Okay, let's see, what else do I want to say about this? Well, since you were gracious enough to come to my show and talk about this, feel free to talk about your organizations, give information for those who may need help to reach out to you.
Sure. Well, I'm located on Chamblee Tucker Road in Atlanta, right near 85 in Chamblee Tucker, so it's kind of northeast Atlanta, near Tucker-ish. And I can be reached at 770-313-7658. You can reach me by email at Rachel, R-A-C-H-E-L, at EasyVisa, so it's the word easy written out, visa.us. We also have a website, easyvisa.us. We have a Facebook page and a Twitter page. I think our Twitter is EasyVisaUS or something.
Okay.
We don't do as much immigration court as we did. We do a few cases, but we do a lot of, we do every kind of case before USCIS and employment-based, family-based, asylum, and we love, we love immigrants. We love helping people out, and we have the nicest, most wonderful clients. Couldn't have better clients. I'm very
Okay.
blessed.
We are blessed too. I work with Immigrant Hope Atlanta, and our website is hopeatl.org because we're a nonprofit. And we also do USCIS family petitions and things like that. Let's see, we have we're connected with a lot of churches too. In fact, our office is at a church. So we're at 1850 1850 Skyland Terrace Northeast, Atlanta, Georgia, Brookhaven. It's right behind Plaza Fiesta. And of course, I speak Spanish well, so anything you might need as far as a family petition or anything like that. We do something also called Humanitarian Deferred Action, and so we're connected with Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, and so we can get a work permit for parents who are unauthorized, and we're able to, if you do have a child who has cancer or a child who was born with a syndrome or something like that, right now we have about 20 of those clients, and of course they can't pay very much, so it's hard for them to go to a lawyer because of their medical bills. So we're able to get them a work permit that's renewable every 2 years, depending on the condition of the child. So in case you need a driver's license, that's what it's basically good for. A work permit is working and getting a driver's license. But our phone number is 404-500-8184.
Okay.
That's 404-500-8184.
Okay.
And I speak Spanish. I can answer your questions there too.
Okay.
Yeah, we speak
Thank you.
Spanish as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other languages? Are there people
They
who
mostly
work
come
at
out
your
in
places?
Spanish for me now.
Okay. But do you have any other interpreters? I should.
Oh yeah, we
say,
can always get an
working-
interpreter. You can
We
At
can,
your place of
but
work.
primarily Spanish.
Okay.
Well, I have a paralegal who speaks French.
Oh,
but,
okay.
Yeah.
May not
Spanish
find
is what
too
we
many,
use the most.
Okay.
So,
We
yeah.
have people that speak
Well-
Vietnamese. We have
Oh.
Chinese. We have people from Iran, Iraq that are able to come and help us too. So we have people from all over that speak Middle Eastern languages.
Okay.
So yeah,
Okay. I have one more question before we wrap up. Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer met with President Trump.
Oh, he's
He
amnesty
said
done
one
now,
thing.
did you hear?
They said another. Do you trust President Trump with this matter, to do the right thing with this matter?
What?
I'm going to answer that when the FBI is going to come to my house.
Uh-oh.
Hey, I don't care what people think about me.
Okay.
But I do care that immigrants are taken care of. That's what we're here for. We're not
Yeah.
here for politicians.
Right.
And
right.
the problem is, this is a political problem. And so we're here to support immigrants. We're not
Okay.
here for politicians. And the truth of the matter is, nobody but God knows what Trump's going to do tomorrow.
Right.
Okay?
That's true.
Not
But-
even him.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So to say that, to make some presupposition about what's going to happen, no one can do that right
Right.
now.
Right.
But I think that's probably where my faith comes in. I need to ask God, God, please help the congressmen do something. Get off their rear ends and do something about this. It's been since 1965 since we've had reform.
Wow.
And comprehensive immigration reform is not a liberal term. It's a fact that we need to have it. And it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. It
Right.
doesn't matter where you're sitting. You know, we're supposed to be taking care of the most vulnerable among us.
Right.
And that is not happening.
Right.
And we need to do that.
Right.
That's why she does what she does. That's what I do what I do.
And on that note, I want to thank Rachel Ephron Sharma and Tim Campbell for serving as my guests today and providing such important information, educating us on the issues of DACA. I also want to thank Priority Healthcare Chiropractic Center for its sponsorship of today's show. Their motto is treating the full spectrum of chiropractic care. Priority Healthcare Chiropractic is located in Forest Park, Georgia. Please go to priorityhealthcarechiro.com for more information and to make an appointment. This has been a Fanciful Films Entertainment Company production. Please visit the website www.fancifulfilmsco.com for more information. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming.
I just hope all the